Welcome to my humble little office. My name is R. Keith Andrews. I'm a spiritual guide and paranormal adept. The journey continues today on, good question really, April 5th, 2025 at approximately 9:01 p.m. PST. Now, I've made it my life journey to remind people that working together, we can make this a better world for virtually everybody. And I bill myself as a spiritual guide because the tools I offer are the same tools I personally use in my day-to-day life. And the philosophies of life I talk about are the exact same philosophies that I guide virtually every decision I make by. Now, before we get into it today, definitely special hats off to Storm, as he is in the background. He's our primary moderator that makes absolutely certain that the technology, as best we can, works. Of course, that's a challenge in my world. Okay, but he's also the one that keeps this place safe for everybody else, because he'll spot the problem children, even if you change your name. I don't know how he does it. Of course, I don't know how you turn a computer on half the time, but he'll toss them out. They can still listen, but they won't be able to cause a problem. Okay, so definitely hats off to him. Now, today we are literally looking at a new financial formula to prepare you for your future. Now, understand, I am not a financial advisor, as in I've never gone to school to learn the way that they tell you to help the banks out. Oh, I'm sorry, that's not what they do. But Angels of Life, you are in with the goal. Glad to see you. Now, the reality is, find that there's a lot of really good books out there, really fabulous books that tell you how to make money work if you've got $30,000 or $40,000. Now, I'm not entirely certain about you. Myself, I'm lucky if I've got 3 or 4. Okay, so yes, I do have a book on finances, okay, called Believe in Your Finances and Follow Your Dreams. If you go to the top of the stream, you'll find the Buy Me a Coffee link. You go there, you can find all the books I've dealt with. But today, we are dealing with the formula. And if you don't have it already, take a moment out and get a sheet of paper, okay? Because I did actually do a little bit of prep on this one, which is weird in itself. So the first thing that you desire to do, now I'm going to walk through this, and absolutely, if you've got questions, ask. But put the questions in all caps so I can find them if you would be kind enough to do so. Eternity Eternal, you are in with the silver. Welcome aboard. Now, the first step to getting your finances back on track, in a nutshell, here's the real key to it. If you desire your bank account to grow, spend less than you have coming in. Okay, it's weird that way. You don't spend it, it'll grow. But there are ways to make that a little bit more effective. So the first thing you do to get yourself set up is this. I didn't write it because if I wrote it, you couldn't read it. Okay, now the reason I'm holding this up for this length is so you got the time to write it down. But figure out your living expenses, your rent or lease or your mortgage, whatever you're using to keep a roof over your head. Utilities being your gas, your power, your water, your garbage, okay, your phone, your cell phone. These are utilities. These are the things that make your life tolerable, if you will. Okay, then you've got your insurance, and this is referring to your medical insurance, your car insurance, your home insurance, and your life insurance. Okay, then let's not forget, you've got to be looking at your food. I'd suggest you eat your food instead of just looking at it, because most of you do not know how to eat food by osmosis. Now, oddly enough, the thing people keep forgetting about is the living expense of entertainment. Now, one chap I was talking to today, reminded me that entertainment quite often will come in the form of your internet or your TV. Okay, which is very much the case. It's just a question of make sure you got that covered. You also have to be looking at savings. Okay, because yes, you may be living today, but down the road, you may be working today, but down the road, you may not be. Okay, so you make sure money is going into savings, and we'll get to that side of it pretty quick here. Then you've got one credit card. Now, don't kid yourself. You want 17 credit cards, you desire to have 150 of them, doesn't matter. One gets used as part of your living expenses. Okay, and there are ways to actually, and you're going to love this one, there are ways to actually earn money with a credit card. And that's going to sound really weird. It won't add much, but you can earn money with them. Now, that's the first step. Get that list together because everything hinges on you knowing how much money you require. And yes, by the way, this information is going to be covered again. It's going to be covered in more detail as a reminder on the free magazine that I've got on through Positive Perspectives. Okay, once you've got your living expenses identified, now we take a look at your income. Your income, okay, may come from government, a paycheck, an investment that you put money into before and it's paying back now. Could be like a trust fund, for instance, which is an investment. Okay, maybe you got a gift. Maybe your tax return came back. Okay, these are all forms of income. And we are referring to every single one of these. If you've got all these coming in, the following formula applies to every one of them. Okay, so hopefully you're writing these down. Okay, that's why I'm holding them up there. I did my best to print in a fashion that you can read. Jarvis, how you doing? Glad you could join us. You are actually in with the bronze. And you know, to be honest, I don't think I've seen you in here for a while, if at all. So welcome aboard. Just a quick reminder, if you've got questions, absolutely ask. Okay, but if you're writing them in the chat room, do me a favor and put them in all caps so that I can find them. Now, every one of those checks, and here's where things start to get manipulated a little. Okay, the first thing you do, a check comes in, before you do anything, take 1% off the top. That goes directly into your pocket. This is your mad money. Okay, now mad money is what you use to buy a chocolate bar, to buy a coffee. You put enough aside, you buy yourself a meal out. This is money that gets used by you. Now, why? I'd love to there. Angels of Life is saying, screenshot that sign Keith was holding. Now, I can hold it up again for you. I have no idea how to do it. How's that for good? But I will bring these back up. But that 1% comes off the top. But what it does is it changes the feel of the income from I'm working to pay my bills to I'm working and paying my bills. And I'll tell you, that is a critical factor. So that 1% comes off the top. Okay. And I'm talking about the money that actually gets to your bank or gets to you. Now, 1% means $1 out of every $100 or 1 penny out of every dollar. Okay. So, yeah, we are talking small amounts. Okay. That 1% is critical to changing the feel of the money. Once you've got that 1% off, okay, now you take a look at it. And this is the part you're going to look at me going, but income tax is already paid. That money that's left in your bank now, you take 25% and set it aside for taxes. If you've got a spare bank account you're using for that purpose, great. If not, maybe you've just got to leave it. Maybe you just put it in savings and mark how much it was. Now, the argument, well, the money's being put aside is already being paid for income tax from your employment. Bad news. Governments don't always get it right. Whether it's an oversight or deliberate, you guys can argue. Okay, but you put that 25% aside into your savings and leave it there for the year until tax season. Okay, now you've got that money put aside. Now we go to the next step. Remember that number you figured out, the living expenses. For me, that's $2,500. Okay, now you take that, you leave the rest of the money in the living expenses in the bank, but make sure you note it. Try and figure which side I should be on here. Make sure you leave that sit there, but make sure you keep track of what it is. Because as your utilities and what have you get paid off, check them off. Okay, and there's a whole lot of ways of doing that. But you leave your living expenses sit. Okay, now, what was that? Anyway, now that you've got that there, now you look at what you've got left. Okay, now I'm not giving you numbers to work with because it's your numbers that are going to matter. Okay, once you've got the money, the living expenses put aside, now you go to this neat little thing. If I can get my hand to work, that'll be great. Now, this one, you've got your living expenses sitting there, and you've got some money left over. Whatever's left over, you take half the remaining stuff that's in that bank after you've got your living expenses sitting there. Half of that goes into your savings. Okay, this will help set things up so you actually are putting money aside. Now, bear in mind, these tools I'm talking about, I'm literally using myself. Okay, so you put the half of the balance into your savings. You notice I'm putting a whole pile of money into your savings account. Okay, the other half, okay, is your discretionary money. That's the money you use for the increase in your entertainment if you choose to, or maybe use it for a little bit of a specialty kick for food. Maybe you're using it to put aside for holidays. And yes, I have a couple books on the go in the middle of production to cover a lot of these things. Okay, so hopefully this is making sense. Jarvis, I do believe your face is upside down. Now, if I take a look at that, just in simple terms, why don't we do it that way? I didn't quite do this part, so I'm going to now. Okay, let's say you've got a check. You know, I was debating whether or not to go the route of giving you numbers to work with. Okay, they're all essentially they're picked out of a hat because it's your money that matters. This is why I said make sure you track it. Okay, but let's say, and I have no idea what the actual income is at this point in time, but let's say you get $1,000 on a paycheck. Okay, so we take $1,000 off the top. I'm going to show this to you in just 10 seconds here. Minus 1%, which is of $1,000, 1% is only $10. Okay, 1,000 minus 10 leaves you with $1,990. Okay, so that's one check, one gift, one whatever. You start with $1,000. Okay. Now, you take 1% off, $10. That goes into your pocket. That's mad money. Okay. Now, we have $19.90 left. Yeah, grab my wonderful little calculator here. And we go 1990.25. Take 20% of that. And we'll round it up, simply because of easy numbers. I'm going to round that up to $500. Okay. I'm going to take 25%, which is 500, which is going to leave you 1,490. Okay. Now, this is what's left after you ended up. This is what you have left after you took your 1%. You put 25%, roughly $500, leaves you $1,490. Okay, that's what you're working with. Now, out of that $1,490, so we put the $1,490 back at the top here. And simply because of the fact that realistically, most people do not have a paycheck that covers the rent in one shot. So we're going to call your rent, and we're going to call it and say, Robert White, how you doing? Glad you could join us. I don't know. Robert White goes, hi all, if we have 9 watching, why is it only 4 showing 4 legs? Glad to see you again there, Robert. Hopefully things are going well on your end. By the way, I missed. Blue Cruz, you are in with the bronze, and this puts Robert White. Yeah, I lied. My apologies. Let's go back. Angels of Life came in with the gold. Jarvis came in with the silver. Eternity Eternal, you came in with the bronze. I missed Jarvis when he first got here. My apologies, people. Then we have Blue Cruz comes in with honorable mention. And now we have Robert White. And there is Poetically Mistaken. Now, the $1,490, and we're just going to call a blanket because most people don't get one paycheck that covers your rent. Okay, so we're going to put your rent costing $1,500. Okay, so since you've got $1,500 for rent, okay, since you've got $1,500 for rent, okay, and you only got $1,490, you've got nothing left to work with. Remember, your expenses to keep a roof over your head, it is critical you get your expenses paid for first. So, this is only one check, remember. You got $1,490, it's costing you $1,500 for rent. You got nothing left to work with. That's not a problem. This is only one check. Now, your next ow. Your next check comes in. And again, we're just running simple numbers for you. And we have another check. Your second check comes in, also at $1,000. Okay. Now, needless to say, this is just simply picking numbers essentially out of a hat. Okay. So again, we have the $1,000 come in, minus 1% for mad money, leaves you $1,990. It does not leave you $1,990, it leaves you $990. Boy, did I ever do my math wrong. I should really get slapped for that. What do you think? This is why I didn't do the numbers to start with, it would seem. Yeah, I worked out at $2,000 a month. Okay, well, scratch that thought. So much for math. Where did my pen go? There it is. Yeah, black on black, that always works. So you actually will do it this way. You minus the 1% for mad money, which happens to be $9.90. Okay. Now, of course, at $9.90, you're not going to have a lot to work with, but this is where the extra money comes in. And I don't like the way I did that. Boy, yeah, I scramble that. It's a good thing I'm planning on putting this down in proper written form. Okay, but what you're looking at is once you get your money put aside, okay, where did we go? Yeah. Let's run through that again. It's a good thing I got time to double check that, because that was just pathetic. I did say I'm not actually trained as a financial advisor. So you have, if you're only getting $1,000, if you're only making $2,000 a month, you're not living on your own. Okay, not in today's world where you're paying $1,500 for rent, which means, okay, we'll take that as you're only paying half of it. Okay, you take 1% off the top, okay, which is $10. That is your mad money. That was where, this is why I usually tell people, think, then speak. Apparently, I didn't do that very well. This leaves $9.90. Okay. Now, if we do it that way, where you're sharing rent, which is probably the case. I don't know, anybody here actually make enough to pay a $1,500 rent on your own? That'd be nice. But you take 1% off, which is $10, leaving you $990. You've got $990 left. Okay. But at $990, put that out of the way because that was terrible. Boy, did I scramble that. Times 0.25 equals, we're going to round that up, and you're going to go 25% for tax. And like I said, okay, like I said, with that 25%, your tax is already being paid. You put that money aside for taxes afterwards, because we know the government's going to screw it up. Sooner or later, they're going to make a mistake and blame you for it in all likelihood. So at $990 minus $250, we've got a whopping $740 left. Now we're back to math that actually makes sense. But, okay, your half of the rent is $750. So we're down to $740 rent that you've got left. You require $750 for rent, okay, for living expenses. So we start off with another $1,000 check. Okay, that $1,000 minus 1%, which is $10 for mad money. Again, it's a new check. Okay. So this leaves you with $990. Okay, you're back to the same thing we started with. Okay, this is your second check though. Now you've already got $740 sitting in the bank, handling your living expenses. Okay, So we're going to start with this 990 you've got. And you only require 10 to cover that other issue. Okay. So that 990, we take off. Where did my 990, that rent, the income tax go? Right here. Okay, we're back to the 990 minus 25% for your income tax. That's to make sure you've got it in case the government screws up, and Lord knows they're going to do that. Okay, so we start off with 740 from the second check now in your possession. Okay, but you've already got 740 sitting aside. You only require 750. Hopefully you're with me so far. So out of that, remember I said you got to put your living expenses aside. Second check comes in, you got 740 to work with after taxes. You put another 10 into your bank to handle your living expenses. This leaves you 730. That is free and clear. Your living expenses are already covered. And remember, this presumes you've used the money effectively and already got your money, your food in the house. Okay. Now, whoop, this is from rent. Now what we're going to do is get my hands to work. You still got 730 here. So here's where we go from here. Okay. Of that 730, you're going to take half of it and put it straight into savings. Okay. So if we take 730, divide by 2, means you're now going to have at the end of the month after the second check, you're going to have, you've got 730. 730, you're going to take 1/2, which is 365, and it goes to savings, leaving you with 365 discretionary money. This is the money that you use to buy that new computer. You put it aside to buy the new computer, maybe take a holiday. Okay. Maybe you're just going to sink it into savings, which would be advisable, by the way. Okay. You're going to take the other 365 is your discretionary money. Okay. Now, hopefully this is making sense. Okay. But you do this with literally everything that comes in. Whether it's a paycheck, a government check, i.e., maybe you're on old age security, maybe you're on an old age pension. Perhaps you've got a trust fund that is paying you a certain amount a month. Okay, whatever the income is, it follows the same path. Now, this is simply the easiest way that I know of to explain it. I am going to include this better get it into May's. I'll take a look at what I've got for May. If it's not in May's positive perspectives, it'll certainly be in June's. Okay, this whole formula, so that you've got it there in writing. My goal is real simple. I made a lot of mistakes over the years. A lot of them. And I'm hoping to be able to turn the lights on so you guys don't do the same ones. Sure, go out and find all kinds of new and exciting mistakes to make. But if you follow these steps, give you an idea. I've been fighting for months to survive. I started implementing this formula at the beginning of January of this year. Okay, this is why I say these are tools I personally use. Okay, at present, I have just over $300 in my bank account, in my savings account. My rent is already paid for this month. Half my utilities have already been paid. Okay, ahead of time, in all fairness, they're not due to the middle of the month. They're already paid. Okay, and every check that comes in from here on out, this is the same formula I'm using. Okay, so this is a question of you've got the capacity. Okay, and as the I forget what the little short was back in the 70s. Schoolhouse Rock, I think it was. You've got the power. I'm giving you the tools. Absolutely, in all fairness, I'm giving them to you free of charge. Okay, I do have books that cover this kind of thing. But this formula, put to use effective tonight. Okay, don't make the mistake of putting it off until next week. I'll tell you can put it off as long as you want it, as long as you desire. Won't have any functional bearing on me. Okay, but this formula I've been utilizing. My rent, I now have an income high enough to cover my living expenses, to put money in the bank, and to have food in the house. All in all, this is what I'm doing. Okay, now I'm not going to tell you I'm the best person. I can't tell you jack about the way compound interest works at this point. So I work with simple interest. In other words, if it's going to cost 1%, that's all it is. If you're going to put something away for, into an investment portfolio, knock yourself out. But I will tell you, from my money, investing in yourself is the key. This is the important factor, is we can no longer afford to wait for somebody to come along and straighten the mess out. It is up to us. Now, bear in mind, these little things here, okay, these little pictures that I drew up. It's a good thing I didn't write. Guys, you're not reading my handwriting. That's just reality. But again, it boils down to this. You take 1% on, and I'll just pop those up again without the actual numbers. Okay. Figure out your living expenses. Rent, utilities, insurance, food, entertainment, savings, and one credit card. Now remember, the reality is most of you are sharing rent. Okay, so whatever the rent is, your share is half of that. Okay, figure that out before you get started. You shouldn't have too much trouble with it. Look at your bills. Then, every check that comes in, every chunk of cash that comes in, whether it's $1, whether it's $1,000, if it's $100,000, okay, this works for everybody. Okay, you look at government checks, paychecks, investments. Remember, trust fund can be as an investment. Gifts coming in, your tax return when it shows up. Okay, you figure all that out. Okay, now, any check that comes in, any money at all, 1% comes off the top and goes into your pocket. Now, if you happen to have a spouse, I recommend that you put 1% into their pocket as well. Understand, this means you're both doing the same thing. You're working on percentages, not who's paying more money. It's, are you paying a percentage of the money? Okay, that mad money, the reason you put it there is because what you end up with is you change the feel of your income from I'm working to pay my bills to I'm working and paying my bills. And just take my word for this one until you experience it. it feels a lot better. I don't know about you, but I find if I'm generating income because I'm putting effort into it, because I'm doing the work, I'm much happier than if I'm just sitting there getting a paycheck or getting a support check. Now, once you take that 1% of what's left, 25% gets set aside for taxes, just in case, kind of like just in case the sun rises, the government screws it up. Okay, so you put the 25 aside. Okay, now where you put it, that's up to you, but definitely put it aside. Then you already know what your living expenses are. So you take the living expenses and you leave them in the bank. Okay, that is the money you're working with. Okay, and then sometimes multiple checks come in or multiple accounts come in handy, but you can get bogged down. Okay, now you put that money aside. Now you take a look at what's left. As we saw on the $1,000 event, okay, you're looking at 730 after what we've just gone through. Well, you take half of that and put it directly into savings. That doesn't get touched. Okay, now there's all kinds of ways you can look at that. And I'll be happy to walk through it with you. This is why I do consulting. Okay, and that link too is at the top of the screen at www.buymeacoffee.com/innervoicej. Half goes into your savings. Half goes into gets left. Because once you get rid of that half into savings, now you take a look at the last half, the last 365. That is discretionary money. That's what you're using to spend to work with. Okay, it's also how you're going to build your money. Now, the neat part about this is I've got a booklet I'm working on called How to Make Money, and More. This is part of the formula that's going to be in that book. Okay, the idea here is real simple. I've made enough mistakes. Let's see what we can do about pointing you in the right direction so you don't make the same mistakes I made. Okay, I certainly encourage you to avoid mistakes, but mistakes are made because you didn't know, for whatever reason, odds are your teachers didn't know, okay, how to make this happen. Now, this is literally what I am doing. So I'm not sitting here telling you this will work, go and do it. I'm doing something else. This is what is working. So hopefully this is making sense. Now, there's a lot of different things that can be done to add to this little rendition that I've just laid out. Okay, and here's the thing. I can literally tell you how to make money with your credit card. How to earn money with your credit card. Not how to build up a debt load. I can show you how to do that. Okay, and it won't be a lot of money. Okay, it'll only be a few dollars at a time. But every little dollar helps. As my father put it, you take care of the pennies, the dollars will take care of themselves. Okay, too bad that doesn't work in real life where it comes to people. Take care of the children. As they get older, they'll take care of themselves. Unfortunately, they're not being taught that. This formula works. I'm living proof of it. I'm going to steal a comment that somebody said a few thousand years ago. Well, a couple of thousand years ago. When I'm going to put it in this term, where it comes to financial manipulation, all that I do, you can do, and more. I'm just giving you the starting tools. Okay, It's up to you to look into, to pick up the tools and do something with it. If you desire to get a handle on how compound interest works, there is, I don't know how it's going to work as far as how it actually works, but I did find, and where is it here? I don't know how to get up there, but I saved it and it didn't save it where I wanted it. Anyway, I just simply looked up compound interest calculator on the internet. It popped one up, works like a charm. Okay, but the formula I've just laid out for you will work. And again, don't take my word for it. Do your own research. If you haven't utilized this method before, okay, put it to use and see what happens. Track what you're doing. Now, neat part about all of this, I'm just going to move some of my paperwork out of the way. I work, as I've told you, I work on a desktop calendar. But on this calendar, okay, I have literally, when my different checks come in, when my CPP, which is Canada Pension Plan, when my social assistance, the medical disability I work with, when it comes in, sales are debatable. I pull them when I can. I've got all of my utilities listed as to when they have to be paid. Okay, including my rent, which, by the way, isn't a utility. I've got it all marked here. This is a question of planning. Now, the reality is people do not plan to fail. People fail to plan. But, the sad truth of it, you may, for whatever reason, never have learned how to plan. Okay, this shows you how to plan. Put these tools to work. You're going to find, I'm absolutely certain of it, if you follow them, you're going to manage to pull it together. Now, there's all kinds of philosophies like, if you can't make ends meet, cut back, cut back, cut back. There comes a point where you're not cutting back. You're just out of cutback room. But odds are you're sharing rent. Okay, most of you, I'm betting, can't afford to live on your own. But remember, if you've got a $1,500 rent and you're only sharing with one person, you're only paying $750. They're paying the other $750. And absolutely get them to use the same tool. Okay, if there's 3 of you sharing the expenses, it drops to $500 each. But get everybody using the same tool, you're all going to benefit. I know this for an absolute certainty because I'm doing it. Okay, this is not just a question of, let's see if it works. This is a question of, it's working. And again, guys, whatever you do, if you've got a question about it, drop me a line. I will be putting this information into Positive Perspectives, into the free magazine, and I will absolutely be dealing with this down the road as we go. The neat part about it is this is simply a way. Now, I'm no professional from the standpoint of I've never been trained how banks work. I've never been trained how investments work. I've simply made a lot of really dumb moves. Okay, I'm just aiming at giving you guys a heads up on these are pitfalls I know about. Okay, I do encourage you to try to give them a shot. See what happens with them. Okay, but ultimately, God's not going to sort out your money. The government isn't going to sort it out. The moguls aren't going to sort it out. Your spiritual guides and the clergy, they're not going to sort out the situation. It's in your hands. I'm just giving you the tool. It's up to you to pick it up and use it. You know, the neat part about it, I'm just looking at this. You know, we had a good little run there. The reality of it is people are being taught to sit back, look for instant gratification, blame everybody else, and absolutely spend money that you don't have. Now, something we are going to be talking about in the next little while, okay, is the way that the hang-ups and the hiccups around rent to own and leases. And why not? Where's this? Tomorrow we are dealing with the consortium empire, with the consortium, with their control, with their overseeing, as compared to the different empires. But on Monday, let's take a look at the reality behind rent to own and leasing. Okay, we take a look at that on Monday. Don't know about Tuesday yet. We'll figure that out. Okay. But suggestions are always welcome. Now, the nice part about this is I'm not telling you this is the only way to do it. Okay. All I'm saying is that this is a way that I know works because I'm doing it myself. I'm not going to tell you, don't do this because, well, I think you should, and I'm going to do it my way. I could do like many of the churches do, and go, money is the root of all evil. Give us all your money, and we'll deal with it. No, I'm going to tell you point blank. Hang on to your money. I didn't. Okay, I did not look at that. If I'd have done that when I was 20, when I was teaching other people how to do it, I would probably be a millionaire right now. If you're in that age bracket, the tools I'm working with can do that for you. But you're going to have to do the work. One of the things we have to remember is this is not a question of waiting for somebody else to straighten it out. This is a question of you going, I didn't know about that, so now I'm going to work with it. Oh, why not? We've been looking at that anyway. So on Monday we deal with, that's on Monday. And then on Tuesday, we deal with sales. Okay, sales and coupons. As it turns out, we've got this neat little problem in this world. There are so many people out there telling you, oh, you can get this, invest, put money into this quick and get rich quick scheme. It's going to make you millions. It's going to make you thousands. You can live on it in days. I'm telling you, no. I'm telling you, here is a tool that works. Okay, but you've got to work it. You know the old axiom. Give a man a fish, you feed him for a day. Teach a man to fish, you feed him for life. These get-rich investments, these put money into it, you'll get $1,000 a day type thing, do not work as well as you might think. If they did, the massive majority of people would not be in financial straits. So what I'm endeavoring to do is show you, regardless of your income, you got $1,000 coming in a month, you're working with that. You got, 10,000 coming in a month, this same formula applies. Okay, this is the formula that works. And it's the one that many of your guides, many of the people don't even know about. Okay, I know this for a certainty because I look at the state the world's in. Okay, and again, don't take my word for it. Literally take a look at the facts of the matter. Facts being, you test the formula out. I'd love to hear your feedback. Okay, I really would. But test the formula out that I've just laid out. Okay. But it starts with you knowing where you're standing and changing the path you're on. Because if you don't change the path you're on, you're going to be in a mess by the time the retirement happens. I know, because that's where I am. And before somebody jumps on that, oh, it won't happen to me. You know how many people got buried because it wouldn't happen to them? Or how many people went bankrupt because they wouldn't make the same mistake, but they didn't track it, they didn't put the effort into it, they didn't put the work into it. Net result, they didn't get the outcome. But this is not a question of my saying, oh, give me money and you'll make $1,000 a day. Not going to happen that way. Okay, I'm talking about making pennies on the dollar. But when you deal with them, when you pay attention to it, they will add up. Hence why my savings account currently has, in just 2 months, on top of having to turn things around, it has turned around and has now over $300 in it. Now you think about that. That will put close to $1,800 into my savings account alone by the end of the year. So far, every dollar that's gone into my savings account has stayed there. Now, I'm fully cognizant of the fact that I may have to dip into it because finances are not always as stable as I would like. But this is a starting point, and you've got to watch it. And quite seriously, I strongly suggest you watch it on a day-by-day basis. Okay, don't make the mistake of going, oh, I don't have to track it that carefully. I know what I'm doing. I've seen people that do that. They go, I know what I'm doing. I won't fall into the same trap. And then 2 months later, they're going, how did I end up in this mess? Well, it's because you didn't do the work. Okay, now, as I've told you before, it takes roughly 21 days to form a habit. Okay, this neat little endeavor, okay, this whole trick with the calendar, okay, has been literally done from the standpoint of 2 years in the making. Where are we here? Okay, so ultimately what we have to look at is you now have tools that absolutely, I am going to put this into concise form and have it available. It will, like I said, I don't know if I'll have it in May's edition or if it ends up in June. Considering May is almost written altogether, it'll probably be in June. As a matter of fact, why don't we do that? We should make a note for ourselves here. And we will put the financial formula in June of 2025's edition of the Positive Perspectives magazine. Storm, thank you so much. We are down to the 5-minute mark. Now, my apologies again for the mess at the beginning. Math, I wasn't working out quite right. I had things turned around. But go back through it. Watch for this formula. I'm going to be putting it in. Yeah, I'm going to be putting it in Positive Perspectives. You know, the nice part about it, and you know, Woo, that's a really wonderful idea. You know, welcome on board, by the way, Woo. But you just gave me a brilliant idea for this coming Friday. Okay. I've already laid out the other two, and I'll be talking, and I'll get it straightened out with Storm anyway. But let's take a look at what you just said there, Wu. Because Wu comes in and goes, everyone have a great Sunday in this blatantly scripted reality. Let's take a look at reality scripted or not. We'll do that on Friday. Just making a note for myself here. I love modern pens. They work so well. Now, with that in mind, we're down to the last 5 minutes. So I just want to say thank you so very much for sharing your time with us tonight. Really appreciate it. I will be back again tomorrow. But tomorrow, we're going to be looking at the consortium, and their influence over the space between empire claimed areas. Okay, we'll be dealing with that tomorrow. Then on Monday, we are going to take a look at sales or at rent to own and leasing. Then on Tuesday, we're going to take a look at sales and coupons. And on Friday, we're going to be looking at reality. Is it scripted or not? That said, thank you so very much for sharing your time with us tonight. Really appreciate it. I will be back again tomorrow. But until then, do take care of yourselves and each other. And for